sermon we're unpacking today.
It's titled Quo Vadis, The Glory of the Cross and Mutual Love, and it was delivered pretty recently, January 25, 2026, at the Pittsburgh Korean Central Church.
And we have to talk about the setting because it really colors the whole message.
Yeah.
There was a massive snowstorm in Pittsburgh that day.
Oh yeah, total whiteout.
The speaker mentions that. He says he's delivering the message sitting down, which he notes is actually how Jewish rabbis used to teach.
But it wasn't a stylistic choice, right?
No, not at all. It was just because the snow and this heavy atmosphere created this, I don't know, this intimate, almost huddled mood.
It really sets the stage for a very reflective deep dive. This isn't some high-energy motivational speech.
Right.
It's a quiet, intense conversation. The speaker takes that question, Quo Vadis, and uses it to unpack 3 huge themes from the Gospel of John. We're going to look at the paradox of glory, then a radical new definition of love, and finally, the fallacy of human willpower.
So let's get into that first one, the paradox of glory. The source text zooms right in on a specific moment in the Last Supper. Judas has just left the room to betray Jesus.
And that timing is absolutely crucial. The text points out that as long as Judas, the betrayer, was in the room, the whole atmosphere was compromised. It was mixed.
Right, the fake element was still there.
Exactly. But the moment he leaves, the moment that betrayal is set in motion, Jesus says something that seems completely backward. He says, now the Son of Man is glorified.
Okay, hold on. Let's look at the timeline here. He is about to be arrested, tortured, and executed in the most shameful way imaginable. And he calls that moment glory.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
Usually glory is the victory parade, the celebration after the win.
Right.
This is where we have to put on our linguist hats for a second. The source dives into the Greek word for glory, which is doxa. And in these 2 verses alone, variations of that word appear 5 times.
So it's a heavy emphasis.
A huge emphasis.
Yeah.
But here is the nugget that really caught my attention. The grammar.
Okay, I never thought I'd say this, but
Yeah.
let's geek out on the grammar. The source made a big deal about the aorist tense. What is that?
So in English, we don't really have a direct equivalent. But the aorist tense describes a past event that has effects continuing into the present. It basically treats the action as a done deal.
A done deal.
So when Jesus says he is glorified, he's speaking about his death as if it has already happened. He's not hoping it turns out well. He is declaring it finished.
The source used a great analogy for this that really helped me visualize it. The 100-meter dash.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the perfect way to understand it. Imagine a sprinter. Let us use Usain Bolt in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
He crosses the finish line in first place.
Okay.
He's 5 meters ahead of everyone else. He has physically crossed the line. Now, pause the tape right there.
Okay. Tape's paused.
Has he stood on the podium yet? No. Has the gold medal been placed around his neck? No. Has the anthem played? Not yet. But is the glory his?
Absolutely. It's locked in. It's a sure thing.
Precisely. The moment he crossed that line, the glory was secure. The ceremony, the podium, the anthem, that's just the public confirmation of what's already happened.
So for Jesus, the decision to go to the cross was the finish line.
That's what the source argues. The resurrection and ascension are the podium ceremony, but the glory was secured the moment he committed to that sacrifice. It totally reframes the cross.
It's not a tragedy in this view. It's the sprint.
It's the instrument of liberation. The source argues that Jesus wasn't looking at the cross as a defeat. He viewed it as the only way to save humanity. He loved the cross because he loved the people he was saving.
That's why it's glory.
Right. But there is another layer here about obedience that I found really, really relatable.
Oh, I know this part.
Yeah.
The concept of reluctant obedience.
Yes. The source makes the point that glory comes from perfect obedience to God. Adam, the first man, he failed at this. He was in paradise, had everything, and still said no.
Jesus was facing hell on earth and said yes.
But for us,
Oh.
we're not perfect. The speaker talks about the congregation coming to church through that snowstorm.
Yeah, he was pretty blunt about it. He says something like, maybe you didn't want to come. Maybe you wanted to stay in your warm bed. Maybe you're singing the songs, but you're just tired and grumpy.
And here is the massive insight. God is glorified even in that reluctant obedience. Maybe even more so.
How so?
Because you are fighting your own nature to do it. You might be dragging your feet, you might be doing it just because you feel you have to, but the act of bending your will, even unhappily, honors God.
That is deeply comforting. It takes the pressure off feeling it all the time.
Right. You don't have to be jumping for joy to be faithful. You just have to show up.
Showing up is the glory. Okay, let's pivot, because the text moves from this vertical relationship with God to a horizontal one, the new commandment.
Love one another.
Which, I have to be the devil's advocate here. The
Yeah.
source asks this pretty obvious question. Why is this called new? I mean, the Old Testament told people to love their neighbors. It's not like love was invented in AD 33.
No, of course not. But the scope of love was reinvented. And this is really interesting historically.
Okay.
The source explains that within the Jewish context of the time, love was very, very insular. The command, love your neighbor, had this silent footnote. It meant love your fellow Israelite.
It was tribal.
Completely. It implicitly meant you can hate the Gentile or you can hate the sinner. The source breaks down the Good Samaritan story to illustrate this huge shift.
A story we've heard so many times we can miss the shock value.
Exactly. The Jews and Samaritans, they despised each other. There was racial tension, questions of pure blood, deep historical grievances.
So for Samaritan to stop and help a beaten Jewish man, that wasn't just a nice guy doing a nice thing.
No, it was a violation of the entire social order. It would be like a soldier stopping to provide medical aid to an enemy combatant in the middle of a war.
Wow.
The new commandment is new because it erases those boundaries. It expands the circle. But then, to explain why this is so hard, the speaker drops this incredibly funny yet poignant anecdote about a big head.
I laughed out loud at this part. Please, for everyone listening, explain the big head theory of love.
Chuckles. Okay, so the speaker tells the story about a wife who is ashamed of her husband. Is he a criminal? No. Is he rude? No. She's ashamed because he has a physically large head.
Just a giant cranium.
A giant head. And she is so embarrassed by this that she doesn't want to walk next to him in public. In church, she makes him sit 3 rows back so they aren't seen together.
Which, ironically, the speaker points out is a tactical error.
It is. He says if you stand next to someone with a big head, your face looks smaller by comparison. It's just good optics.
Practical advice for the selfie generation.
Totally. But the humor sets up this really deep point about shame. The wife's lack of love manifested as shame. She didn't want to be identified with him.
And the source argues that true love is the absence of shame.
Precisely. And then he applies it to Jesus. Jesus knows his disciples are about to fail him. He knows Peter will deny him. He knows they're cowardly. But he isn't ashamed to call them his own.
He doesn't make them sit 3 rows back.
No. He washes their feet. He says, love one another. Don't be ashamed of each other, even when you have big heads, whether that's physical or, flaws in your character.
That leads into what was probably my favorite concept in this entire deep dive, the psychology of the survivor.
Oh, this is such a beautiful metaphor for community. The source argues that the church, or any deep community, should function like survivors of a disaster. He tells this story about an elevator.
Right, set the scene for us.
Okay, so imagine a white woman who has these deep-seated racial prejudices. She doesn't want to shake hands with black people, keeps her distance.
Okay.
But she gets stuck in a broken elevator with a black man. The power cuts. It's pitch black. The cables are screeching. They're trapped there, maybe facing death for hours.
All the social constructs they just dissolve in the dark.
Completely. And when the firefighters finally pry the doors open and pull them out, do they politely nod at each other and go their separate ways?
No, they hug, they embrace.
They're weeping, holding on to each other. The prejudice evaporated. Why? Because surviving death makes all your other differences look ridiculous.
The source had a great line here. In light of surviving death, differences like education, car models, or salary become irrelevant.
Exactly. If we realize that spiritually we are all survivors of death, then why are we arguing about who drives a better car or who went to a better college? It just seems so small.
It brings it back to the Noah's Ark scenario.
Oh, that was a fascinating twist. We usually think of Noah as the winner, right? He survived.
But the source asks us to imagine the psychological reality of being the only human survivor.
Yeah.
Floating on an endless ocean of death with just animals for company.
That isn't a victory lap. That's trauma. That leads to severe depression.
It's the last man on earth nightmare.
Right. The joy of survival comes from surviving together. We need witnesses. We need to look at someone else and say, we made it. That's the real basis of the new commandment.
It's not just about being nice. It's shared survival joy.
We love each other because we're in the lifeboat together.
I love that. It shifts the motivation from duty to just relief. Okay, let's move to the final pillar of this deep dive. We're going back to Peter, back to the question. Lord, where are you going?
This brings us to the fallacy of willpower. Peter asks Jesus where he's going, and Jesus says, you can't follow me now, but you will later. And Peter, classic Peter, he pushes back.
He puffs out his chest. He says, why can't I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you.
He's so confident, so zealous. He really believes he has the willpower to be a martyr right then and there.
And Jesus has to give him this massive reality check.
But wait.
Will you really? I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.
It's brutal. But the source uses this to talk about how we often approach faith, or really any big challenge, with the wrong kind of energy. He uses a sports analogy.
The one about golf or swimming?
Yeah.
I think anyone who plays sports will get this immediately.
Yes, the tension problem. What happens when you try to hit a golf ball with maximum brute strength? What happens when you tense every muscle in your body to swim faster?
You shank the ball into the woods. You sink like a stone.
Exactly. If you try to force it with tension, the mechanics fail. Success in high-performance sports, and the source argues, in faith, comes from taking the power out. It's about relaxing and letting natural forces take over.
In swimming, you have to let the water support you.
And then he drops this cultural reference that I found really interesting. General Yi Sun-sin.
Right. For those who don't know, Yi Sun-sin is a legendary Korean naval commander, a huge hero.
But the image here is of him at this famous battle. It's tragic, it's heavy, it's intense. He's carrying the fate of the entire nation on his shoulders. He's the ultimate stoic hero.
And the source says a lot of early believers look just like that.
Yes, they look like tragic generals. They're praying over a simple lunch with this intense, I am ready to die for you, Lord, energy. They're all tension, all human willpower.
Lord, where do you want me to be martyred today? And meanwhile, God is just saying, just eat your sandwich and be thankful.
Exactly. Jesus is telling Peter, you can't follow me right now because you're trying to do it with your own power. You're too tense.
And we see what happened. Peter's willpower failed him completely.
He crumbled when a servant girl asked him a simple question. The lesson is that true discipleship isn't about gritting your teeth and trying harder. It's about relaxing into the help of the Holy Spirit.
It's dropping the tension.
Just like a good golf swing, you have to let the club do the work. You have to let the Spirit do the work.
So if we zoom out and look at this whole message, we start with Peter running away, and we end with Peter being told he can't follow yet.
It's a complete arc. First, you have the paradox of glory. Understanding that the hard things, the cross, the sacrifice, are actually where the victory is locked in.
It's the gold medal before the ceremony.
Then you have the new commandment.
Which is the practical application. Because we're survivors, we stop judging each other over silly things, the big heads, and we just love each other because we're in the lifeboat together.
And finally, the humility of willpower.
Realizing that we can't muscle our way through this. We are not tragic heroes. We're people who need to relax, trust, and let a power greater than ourselves guide us.
It really changes how you hear that question, Quo Vadis. Where are you going?
It does.
And I think the provocative thought the source leaves us with is that we often try to go where only Jesus could go. We try to be the savior. We try to carry the cross of redemption. But Jesus said, you can't follow me there now. He did the heavy lifting.
So we're Appian Way. Our path isn't to run away from Rome, but it's also not to march in there thinking we're Superman.
Right. It's to turn around, walk back into the city, find the other survivors, and just love them. That's the path. Drop the power, drop the tension, and just be present with the people you've survived with.
I love the idea that the answer to where are you going might just be, I'm going to sit with my neighbor and not be ashamed of them.
And maybe share a meal without praying for martyrdom over the soup.
Exactly. Keep it simple.
It's a relief, honestly. It makes the journey feel possible.
Well, that is a lot to chew on. From the Appian Way to a snowstorm in Pittsburgh to a broken elevator.
It's all connected.
Thank you for unpacking this with us. And to you listening, as you head out onto your own road today, ask yourself, where are you going? And are you trying to get there with brute force, or are you ready to relax and trust the process?
A question worth asking every day.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive. Stay curious. Yeah.